What up, perps? Kid Copious back in effect. Purple State Party. You know what we're doing here. We're repping America. The center and common sense. Keep love in your heart. You know, to all the people out there, you know, that have lost stuff during these horrific fires here in California. You know, I'm right there with you. I watched some pretty special places in my life burned. I know people who lost homes. I myself, you know, I came out pretty unscathed. We'll get to that more a little bit later here. Right now, to all the firefighters out there, man, battling the blazes, this Fetty cannon is for you. All right, so, you know, among other things that have happened this week, they laid Jimmy Carter, former President Carter, to rest. And as usual, the fucking nitwits seem to reign, you know. Babylon Bee puts it this way. Song at funeral comforts everyone by telling them there is no heaven. Religion is a lie and everything else is ultimately meaningless. Yeah, they played John Lennon's Imagine at Carter's funeral. You know, and there is a line in there. Imagine there is no religion, you know. And I understand John's point of view on that. In fact, I love that song. You know, it talks about just, you know, humanity. But Carter was a very devout Christian. So it seems like kind of a bad look to be playing that song. And it kind of just shows you how we have so many nitwits in charge. And the voices that speak out against them are increasingly becoming silent. You know, we have to watch what we say here. We can't put up, you know, conspiracy theories that, you know, Facebook and YouTube and other people disagree with. We can't talk about things. We can't discuss things. I got in trouble once for discussing a particular election. You know, and I thought it was kind of stupid because I wasn't really accusing anybody of anything. I was just trying to bring up something in the overall conversation. And that's what's really lacking in society, is having these straightforward, honest conversations about what's going on. You know, the points, the counterpoints. You know, just because you have an idea doesn't mean you're right. But, you know, it's just like playing Imagine at a Christian funeral. It's clueless, really. Obama and Trump separated at Carter funeral for disruptive behavior. You know, the Babylon Bee, you know. They have their slant, but when they nail a joke, they nail a joke. You know, it was funny because, you know, the right kind of just chuckles about this moment, and the left has a meltdown. And, you know, when they asked Trump about it, he was like, I didn't realize it looked so friendly. I guess we're just friendly. And that's what we have to remember in this country. You know, I remember after Trump was elected this last time, there were a lot of left-wing media personalities telling people that they should shun Trump voters. And that's not any way to accomplish anything in society. You know, sometimes they say we're crafting a real good society there. I say sarcastically. And why I say that is because we come up with things that feel good and sound good, but don't actually work. But then when you try to say it's not going to work, voices say, oh, you're just a MAGA, you're just Trump, you're just whatever. You know, it's really funny as Kid Copious of Purple State Party, I get accused of being biased for one side or the other. I attack whichever side is being stupid. You know, I didn't really like Obama, but I don't really bear him any ill will. I'm sure I could sit next to him and have a conversation where we both laugh, just like Trump did, just like we should all as Americans. And you need to realize that when you pull back all of the fucking curtains out there, eventually you're going to see Trump and Obama sitting there chuckling. They are powerful, rich people who have a lot in common. They may disagree philosophically, but politicians are really on one side, their own side, the side of themselves, the side of fellow politicians, keeping the whole Washington elite thing going, what they like to call the swamp. You know, you can't sit there and be rude to your opponents because you'll never get your point across that way. I don't know if I explained that well enough. I try really hard. I'm just whipping these things off the cuff, But, I saw that and I chuckled. It doesn't bother me that Trump's talking to Obama. It's to be expected. And to me, it's inspirational because it reminds us that we're all human. Before we're Republican or Democrat or independent, we're human. We're Americans. We're citizens of Los Angeles or whatever city you come from. And we have to pull together as a people and start demanding more common sense out of these politicians. Stop placating the extreme. Stop placating the party line and do what needs to be done. And speaking of doing what needs to be done, they had a vote recently in the U.S. House to deport migrants for sex offenders. And it's up on the screen if this is on the podcast. The numbers are 215 yays for the Republicans. No nays, the 5 no votes. Democrats, 51 yes, 158 no, 2 no votes. And what's really sad about this statistic is independents. How did independents vote to deport migrants for sex offenses? Well, 0, because there are no independents. There is no purple representation in the U.S. House of Representatives. So who the fuck are they representing? They're representing people on the 2 extremes, the left and the right, and the rest of us just have to find somebody that we think might do a good job. And that's what's really hampering our progress as a nation. If we had that third party, that purple party running down the middle, saying, well, wait a minute, what about this? Maybe if we apply common sense to this problem, like this one, deportation of migrants for sex offenses. Common sense will tell you, get them the hell out of the country. Lock them up, and when they're done, get them the hell out of this country. They're probably wanted in their country anyhow for something else. All right, now we got all the other stuff out of the way. Let's get to the fire. The Palisades fire was burning when the winds kicked in around where I am. And in my 50-plus years of being here, I do remember us having some pretty bad windstorms, but I've never had one so apocalyptic as this. I mean, at one point I turned to my dog and said, I hope you're tasty, because it was starting to look like an apocalypse. We quickly lost power here. We were outside. We were watching transformers go up, sparks everywhere. We could see the Eaton fire from where I am, the first thing I did was I rounded up all the batteries, all the power packs. I just got a nice big power pack for Christmas, got all that stuff ready. Quickly filled up buckets of water out of the bathtub because you never know if water's going to be diverted or if it's going to, the pumps are going to get shut down. You need to have water. I have rain barrels that collect water. I was ready to boil that, but you need to have buckets in your bathroom unless, you want to just start getting all funky in there. You need to be able to flush your toilet. In case you didn't know that, all you have to do is pour a bucket of water into a toilet and it flushes. Ain't that great? Toilets, one of the most important things on the planet and one of the simplest. The next day we were still without power. We went around, checked on my mom, got her phones and flashlights and things like that charged up off of our batteries, took care of the neighbors, made sure that their phones were charged up. Then at night, we watched the fires just burn ever closer to where we are. We weren't in the direct line, but certainly, with what we saw in the Pacific Palisades, there was a little bit worried that the fire could come down and make its way, through burning embers. Fires cast off burning stuff. It lands, it ignites. That's the way fire works. Fire's kind of indiscriminate that way. My son-in-law or future son-in-law, I just call him my son-in-law. My son-in-law had an app. We were tracking the different planes and helicopters that were flying by. That night we took the tablet, one of those, whatever, the iPad or whatever the hell it was. And my daughter's actually has one that takes USBs. So we were able to watch some TV off of my USBs. But I'll tell you, the best thing that we saw was the stars. With the city blacked out, we were able to look up and see the stars. I actually saw Orion. Saw his nice straight belt right there, dink, 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 Something I hadn't seen in quite a while, probably decades since I've seen the stars, Where when I grew up, I spent a lot of time in rural areas and beach areas that weren't completely developed either. So you saw the stars. And I kind of missed that. And that's what I took away from all of this. Fortunately now, the power's back on. We suffered some damage to the house, minimal. Got a lot of cleanup, a lot of palm fronds. That's the thing about California. When the wind whips through, you end up with palm fronds. Fire is the only natural disaster that can be predicted and stopped. Okay? Yes, there are floods. You can put up levees, things like that, but you can't go out and stop a flood. But you can only do that if the infrastructure is in place. And we knew that this was coming. We knew that last year we had a lot of rain, which was going to grow a lot of vegetation, that was going to dry out over the summer. And La Nina, a drier season for us here in California, we knew it was on the horizon. But to continue the climate change mantra, they want to pretend that this was unforeseen. They want to pretend that evil climate change once again snuck up and got us when we weren't looking, which is bullshit. And it is one of the reasons why these fires are continuing to burn and got so crazy out of control. Because they weren't putting money into the right infrastructure, okay? And it's not to blame, I really want to get away from the blame game here. Mistakes were made, and things that should have been done weren't done. But the fact that, once again, we're pretending that this is climate change is so wrong. I wish I could think of a better word for it, but it's just wrong to blame climate change on this. We knew this was going to come. This is a cycle that we have here. It is a cycle. We get a lot of rain, then we get a dry, then, they call it something like whiplash, something like that, like drought whiplash or whatever. We knew this was coming, and we knew it was on the horizon, and we knew in advance that these winds were coming. And to me, it feels like we did not deploy resources in the right place. And one of the reasons why I think we were caught somewhat off guard, we'll get into the main reason why we were caught off guard in a bit here, but one of the reasons we were caught off guard is because we have a government, both in the city of Los Angeles and in the state of California, that's focused on their agenda, pushing their agenda, focusing on what they want to focus on, instead of focusing on what needs to be focused on. This one popped up, Joe Rogan's chilling prediction about LA fires resurfaces. This is one of the things that I'm really starting to hate about the media. I like dailymail.com here. They do a good job, but, they clickbait the shit out of things. Joe Rogan did not make the chilling prediction, all right? It was a firefighter that he was talking to. And the firefighter basically said, in years past, when wildfires break out, we get lucky with the wind. One of these days, we're not going to get lucky with the wind. And it's going to be catastrophic. And that's exactly what happened. We didn't get lucky. And that's one of the things, that I thought about when I read this story was about how it feels like the government, particularly, I think, Democrats, want to pass laws and then hope it works out. Like we saw here in California, in Los Angeles, okay? Gascon wants to make his priority going after bad cops. He wants to make his priority about giving criminals a second chance. And he wants to give people the opportunity to just be cited and released, no bail, all of those kinds of things. and he hopes it works out. Even though common sense and any amount of wisdom that you've gained from, your years on this planet would tell you that his plan was never going to work. It's sort of the same thing we see right now with electric vehicles. The infrastructure is never going to be able to support it. The most people do not have the access that they would need to charge their cars overnight. It takes too long to charge. In my mind, we are in the neighborhood of 50 to 100 years away from electric vehicles. It might be less than that, maybe 30, 40, but it's not right around the corner. And that's what we saw with this fire. We hoped for the best, and it didn't work. I'm not going to indulge in that one. I want to move on to what I found, some of the stuff that I found interesting that came out. A lot of people who live in LA, A-listers, celebrities, they are going to have to come to terms with the insipid people that they have been supporting. Sarah Michelle Gellar, you might remember her, Buffy and the Vampire Slayer. She accused LA officials of failing to keep the city safe. Like she posted on Instagram, City of LA, you want everyone to evacuate, yet you have complete gridlock and not one traffic cop on the roads helping. You saw the videos of that out there where there's cars abandoned on the road and a bulldozer is just pushing them out of the way. If your car was abandoned by you on a street and a bulldozer pushes it out of the way and totals it, unless you have the right insurance coverage, you ain't getting your car back. But it shows how they were just hoping for the best. Why weren't the LAPD, Highway Patrol, all the sheriffs, why weren't they on alert? Why was it that when evacuation orders came by, you had people just packing the roads? Why was nobody there? I don't know. Actress-producer Sarah Foster wrote on X, our fire hydrants were empty. Our vegetation was overgrown. Brush was not cleared. Our reservoirs were emptied by our governor because tribal leaders wanted to save fish, smelt. Our fire department budget was cut by our mayor, but thank God drug addicts are getting their drug kits. Now, I don't know. The hydrants, that's one of those things that we should have had foresight on. And, like they were talking in the Palisades, they had 3 water towers. Well, why didn't we have 6 water towers? It's really easy. Hindsight is 20/20. But you knew what was going to happen. There is a thing in, for example, in fire sprinklers called calc plates on risers. Risers are what supplies the sprinkler system. And they figure out, hey, okay, if this one sprinkler is going to let out this much water, what's the total if all of the sprinklers pop? What do we need to, we need to add another riser now. Okay, we need more water coming in because there won't be enough water to cover the entire building. So there are things that they could have done. Some of our fire hydrants have been stolen. Some have been damaged. I didn't have time to clip all the articles I ran across, but the fire department even reported in certain areas, especially out there. One was by Pacific Palisades High School. Every year, they write up the same hydrant for not working, and the work never gets done. The vegetation was overgrown, brush not cleared. We have this mantra here in California that we're going to let nature take care of nature, and that's from the environmentalists. And the thing about like an environmentalist is they see the world like this, through the one little lens of their particular cause. They don't see what could result from all of their political pressure to stop logging, to stop the clearance. We have started doing prescribed burns, but it's a little bit slow. It's a little not at the pace that we need to be. And our reservoirs were not emptied by the governor to save smelt. That's an entirely different issue. But again, that shows what happens when you put a smelt, a tiny little fish. Now, I know the reason why smelt is important is because it's an indicator species. If there's a lot of smelt, they know that there's a lot of other things. Okay, whatever. But we need water down in Southern California. We've got it up north. They don't want to pipe it down to save a fish. Again, that's hoping for the best. And our fire department budget was cut by our mayor. And as we're going to see, our fire department budget was cut by the governor. But thank God drug addicts are getting their drug kits. And that's what I mean. That's where our focus has been. Pumping money in. A couple weeks ago, I was talking about the salaries of some of these people who run these homeless advocacy groups. Guys clearing $1.5 million a year, taking care of the homeless. But if he ever takes care of the homeless, he's going to lose that salary, so he doesn't. He supplies them with what they need to live. And as we're seeing, increasingly more and more, the homeless are responsible for fires and crime and just an overall sense of chaos. It doesn't take a genius to figure out what needs to be done. Jillian Michaels added to the conversation, the mayor is apparently in Ghana. She was. The fire department's budget was apparently cut by $17 million. Yeah. And somebody made the decision not to refill some of the reservoirs. One of the reservoirs was offline for maintenance. It probably wouldn't have made much of a difference. But what she said here at the bottom, leadership in California is beyond negligent. This is completely unacceptable. And that is what's going on here. They turn the streets to chaos, but I can't carry a collapsible baton for safety. That is the way they govern. They govern with their fucking hopes and their dreams. And when it blows up in their face, it's just about excuses. All right. Yeah, and talking about the Ghana trip with Bass here. She flew to West Africa, Ghana, to attend the inauguration of the new president and meet with the country's first ever female vice president. How is that official business? And she knew that there was a recipe for fire on the way to strike LA. And she left. Then again, even if she was here, what would she have done? She's incompetent. Okay, she's incompetent. She's only got elected because everybody was riding the BLM wave. They were all just so blinded by trying to be woke that they didn't really look at what kind of candidate they were putting in charge. Some of this is just dumb here. There is a lot of blame to go around, but a lot of what people are latching onto is not necessarily true. Okay? The one thing about it is, they're talking about Bass's budget cuts. They should be talking about Gavin's. We will in a second. There's nothing anybody could have done. That's the, I'm trying to skip along here to get to, something a little more important. So, we've heard a lot of different conspiracies and blame being thrown around. Trump blaming Newsom for this and, Bass cut the budget and all of that. And, I personally think LA should have, this area, the Southern California area should have a much more robust Air Force to attack these things. I don't know why we're having to have help come in from Nevada and even Mexico, Canada. I don't understand why they're having to fly parts in. I think fire readiness should be California's top 5 priority because especially in Southern California, that's what happens. We have fires. We saw devastating ones in the north. So, we need to have those resources. But the truth of the matter is, normally when we have wind events, they're funneled through canyons. Okay? They come out in particular areas. It's muted by the other side of the mountain. The wind bashes into the mountains and it sort of breaks up. This time around, the winds were generated higher in the atmosphere. And they just swept over the mountains and came in en masse. Instead of a funneled, like this, they came in like this. And they overwhelmed everything. There was nothing that could be done. All of this blame game. I mean, yes, there could have been better preparedness. we are seeing the cracks in the preparedness. We're seeing that. We could point it out. We could correct it. And let's hope that they correct it. But make no mistake about it. Nothing that people are saying was wrong would have changed anything. These winds came in and just took out power lines that started fires. And even if we had this air force of tankers and helicopters to swoop in and battle these flames, it's pretty hard to fly when you're facing 80 to 90 mile an hour winds. It's dangerous. It's also very hard to aim any of that water or that fire retardant. So I want to be on record, Purple State Party, as saying that I don't blame Gavin Newsom or Karen Bass for any of this. There are things that they've done that are wrong and should be improved upon in the future. But I don't honestly believe that the hydrants, the water tanks, the airplanes, any of that, more firefighters, any of that, none of it would have changed what happened. This was just Mother Nature going, F you. And now the next F you is going to come. As we're seeing, here's a list here of, some of the people, Anthony Hopkins, John Goodman, Paris Hilton, the Kardashians, I heard Mel Gibson and then Billy Crystal. I mean, Billy Crystal lost his home of 46 years. He raised his kids and grandkids there. First thing I want to say is I don't give a shit if you're rich, okay? I'm sorry. I'm sorry you lost your home. Even if I don't agree with you, I'm sorry you lost your home. Losing one's home is just devastating. I don't ever want to have to face that myself, okay? I'm really sorry. I understand, that you're rich and you probably voted for these blue state policies and all that shit. But I ain't going to give you any hate on this. But I am very hopeful that some of these people are going to learn their lesson about their political allegiances, who they support. A lot of the people who lost their homes support these radical environmental groups like Just Stop Oil. And they spend their money blocking traffic to try to get us to use less gas. It's stupid. But Adam Carolla, a guy I really admire. Adam Carolla, he wasn't born into it. He worked his way up. I remember him starting out on the Kevin and Bean show, But he sets torches to celebrities' voting patterns as his home is threatened by California fires. So he's, according to him, woke and environmental policies of the California supermajority Democrat governor are to blame for the fires raging out of control. And I will give him credit that, in reality, it is those environmental policies that allow all of the dried shit to build up in the forests. Now, again, I don't know if we have the money and manpower to keep all of our forests sparkling clean of any debris, but whatever. According to Carolla, this may finally be the straw that breaks the Democrat stranglehold on the state. Why? Because as these celebrities with almost unlimited resources try to rebuild their homes on the coast, they're going to find out how difficult that will be. And this is where we get into the evilness of California supermajority Democrats here. Okay? As he says, you guys voted for Karen Bass, the mayor of LA, and y'all voted for Gavin Newsom, and now you're fucking getting what you get. Oh, now that your house is on fire, you're thinking about something else. Yeah. Because the Pacific Palisades is probably one of the places they would have cleaned up. So he laid it out. This is what's going to happen. All of these people who are deep blue Democrats are now going to have to pull a permit to rebuild. And they're going to get the 28-year-old bitch from the Coastal Commission telling them to go fuck off. And then they're going to vote for Trump or whoever's Trumpian next. California Coastal Commission, California Air Resource Board, non-elected officials who make sweeping major changes and rules and regulations. These people do not understand what's about to happen, okay? First of all, right now, the Coastal Commission is thinking, oh, goody, we can return Malibu and the Pacific Palisades to nature. Yeah. You don't think they're thinking that? They are thinking that. They're also thinking, hey, I'm going to make a lot of money in kickbacks from developers because now we can rezone the whole thing, turn it into apartment buildings. So what we have to do to return it to nature and allow the developers to put high density housing on the coast is we're going to have to get people to sell their property. The way they're going to sell their property is that they're not going to be able to build a home there. Or if they build a home there, it's going to have to meet such strict requirements that they're not going to want to. Rich people don't want to be told what they can't do, right? And that is sort of their prerogative. When they start getting the regulation, they're going to go nuts. And when they start running into the bureaucracy and the red tape, they're going to start going nuts, and they're going to vote for Rick Caruso next time. They're going to find out that they are going to get bit by their own snake. They're going to convert. I'm telling you, these are the bluest people on the planet, Adam Carolla says. And they are going to be fucking rip shit pissed when the city and the Coastal Commission tell them to F off. They want that land. That land. Those houses have been there for decades, and nobody could do anything. You couldn't try to return some of it to nature. You couldn't pack high-density housing in there because these rich elite people already owned homes there. But now the homes are gone. We're going to have to restructure the whole thing, Adam went on to say, because we can't have 9 angry lesbians controlling everything that goes on in Malibu and the Palisades and Santa Monica. He said that's one of the reasons why Bill Maher began turning less progressive, because of the regulations. Time will tell if leftist celebrities will really change. For the moment, they have more to worry about as the fires continue to spread unabated. Yeah, California will try to figure out how to take that land so that they could do something that they want to do with it. High density housing, link it to a train. We're going to turn it from the playground of the rich and famous into the universal solution for climate change and housing and all of this rah shit. And at the end of the day, a bunch of people who don't deserve it are going to get rich. That's the bottom line. And they're going to get to enact their agendas. Trust me, they are going to get, believe me. I mean, you think about it. 50 years ago, whatever, when Billy Crystal's house was being built, or Anthony Hopkins, or some of these other celebrities, Paris Hilton's house, right? They had different requirements. Things that they could do that they're no longer going to be able to do. Oh, you can't put your pool there because, it might affect the breeding ground of XYZ. You're going to have to pay all these extra fees. You can't use this product anymore. Everything in the house will have to be electric. You can't have a fireplace. So all the homes that had fireplaces, no. We don't allow you to burn wood in your fireplace anymore. So we're going to get rid of that. And like I said, everything's going to have to be electric. You're going to have to install sprinklers. Yeah. You're going to have to install sprinklers, which means you're going to have to get fire department connections and all of that shit. A lot of red tape, a lot of meaningless stuff. And you're going to start to see what goes on with these policies once they're put into action. And that's what happens. That's what happens. You support people like I supported Bill Clinton. And then Bill Clinton said that he's going to force employers to pay for health insurance if they work more than 40 hours. So I went from working 40 to 60 hours a week to 17 hours if I was lucky. That's what happens. I was watching a clip where Reagan was talking about how people love to say, tax business, tax business, tax business. But then business just passes the tax to us. So it ends up being a tax on us. And that's what happens with some of these, I guess, well-intentioned but not well thought out ideas that people have. And then the worst part about it is, instead of learning from their mistakes or owning up to their mistakes, becoming better people because of their mistakes, they pass the buck, just like Gavin here. Gavin passes the buck to local folks when asked about hydrants running out of water. They grilled him over that. Hey, the fire hydrants ran out of water. And he was like, oh, no, that has nothing to do with me. That's up to the local folks. Right. Yeah. Not your fault, right, Gavin? But Gavin, when you want to push one of your far left policies then they have to answer to you or there will be consequences. You can't pick and choose. As governor, you can't pick and choose which responsibilities you want to take on. If there are gaps in our fire protection down here, that's what you're there to do. You're supposed to oversee those things and stop cities from making mistakes. Not telling cities what they can and can't do, but where are the mistakes? That's why you're supposed to have state investigators. That's why you're supposed to have Cal Fire going around and checking these things, checking the calculations. That's why things ran dry. Again, let me reiterate, I don't think there's anything we could have done to stop this fire. All right. It's still burning. So I'm pretty sure that this was a losing battle. I mean, think about it. I could go in and train in boxing for 2 straight years, every day, 365, 24/7, and I still ain't going to beat Mike Tyson. Even at his age, he's going to one-shot me. And that's what the fire did. But are we going to learn from it, or are we just going to pass blame? Because that's what he did. Gavin Newsom cut the fire budget by $100 million last year. Yeah. So let's look at some of the cuts and where that made it. A $5 million cut into CAL FIRE's fuel reduction teams, which included funding to pay for vegetation management work by the California National Guard. So that, again, don't give the fire fuel, right? The total for the program was $129 million. Out of that, $4 million, Forest Legacy Program intended to promote management practices for landowners. $28 million from the state conservatories aimed at increasing wildfire resistance. A further $8 million was cut from monitoring and research programs. And another $3 million from Interagency Forest Data Hub. We have a massive problem in this country with prescription drug abuse. And yet there's no data hub. There's no centralized location to collect this data so that we could see which doctors are overprescribing, how people are getting around this. Why is it that you can just go to dozens of doctors and get pain pills? It's the same thing with this. We need people looking at what's going on. We need people identifying problems before they literally catch on fire. And monitoring research. That's all important stuff. But now, it got cut. There was a pilot program intended to make homes more resilient to wildfires through a hardening scheme. In other words, fireproof materials being used. That had funding cut by $12 million. Okay, we've talked a lot about what they could have done. But this is the one that just, it really pisses me off. We live in a desert. A desert is often an arid, dry place that doesn't get a lot of rainfall. Ancient Petra, look it up. Ancient Petra was a city that rose to prominence in the Middle East because of their ability to collect what little rainwater came in that area and collect it all into cisterns. We don't. California had record rainfall last year, but lacked infrastructure to store it. This comes from Fox News. California does not have a water shortage, yet firefighters battling the brutal fires across Los Angeles are facing scarce resources to keep up with the blaze that has threatened thousands of lives, homes, land, and wildlife. Experts lay the blame primarily on the handling of forest management and a lesser-known problem, the state's outdated water reserves. Our existing reservoirs could only hold so much water, and many were built in the mid-20th century. Last year, the state experienced record-breaking rainfall after an atmospheric rain event, but the existing water infrastructure faced difficulties managing the sudden influx of water. Most of the water went to the sea, and that's one of those fucking environmental things, where they want the water for the wildlife. Well, what about all the water in the wash? Why does that need to go to the ocean? We could have had more water, regardless of whether it would have made a difference in these particular fires. That's academic. That's drinking water. That's agricultural water. Because we're not focused on the right things. Yay, we're a sanctuary state. for illegal migrants and abortion and kids who want to have trans surgery. Yay. I want to be a state known for its ability to fucking store water. It sounds boring, but guess what? Without water, we all die. That's the single most important thing in California. And yet, bottom of the list for these guys. They've all got their agendas, and it's just not sexy. See, that's the problem we have with especially a narcissist like Gavin Newsom. He wants to be friends with all the climate people, all the environmental people, because those are the cool people, the actors, the movie producers, the musicians, all these wankers out there, and he wants to be friends with them. But there aren't a lot of people out there who are like rich and famous promoting water storage. So you don't get to meet cool people if you support water storage, I guess. It's better to say, oh no, we want it to go to the sea because of the smelt. His policies are not to blame for the fires, but they are laid bare because of the fires. We can see the importance of some of these things, the importance of critical infrastructure. Instead of building fucking windmills, we should building reservoirs. We passed countless ballot measures to build water storage. Where the fuck is it, Gavin? Where is it? Here we go, Bronco. Welcome to California. Gavin Newsom's fiddling. Fiddle on the socialism fiddle. And there's a sign up there. No logging or brush clearing with the forest burning behind. How much, how much of your precious CO2 and carbon and climate change and all that, how much of that shit was just sent right down the fucking toilet because of all the smoke? All right? Logging, I know this from my own personal experience, okay? You clear out the dead wood. Okay? People around here, it's funny, I saw this conspiracy now because the palm trees in Hawaii and the palm trees in California didn't burn. And they're like, it's the same, it's a conspiracy. No, it's because living trees don't burn as easily, and palm trees store a lot of water and are pretty fire resistant by nature. But dead, overgrown, dead brambles and branches and that kind of shit, that's what you put in a fire. Have you ever tried to start a fire with wet wood? It doesn't work very well. You certainly can't start a fire with wet wood. But if you just leave all that shit there, think about it. If you're just trying to get wood for wood pulp, go let the loggers in. They pull out all the dead stuff. They pull out all the shit that maybe is in the wrong area. And brush clearing. Don't allow this stuff. We knew last year, after the rains had passed through, that we were going to have to go in and clean shit up. But to protect things, no. Okay, so the houses burn. But Gavin has solved the problem, according to Babylon Bee. Problem solved. Newsom announces plan to make fire illegal. Yeah, I love it. Skipping this one. More green shit. Dan Bongino. He's a guy I really respect. I think he's really earned the right to, he's earned his spot. I disagree with him on some things. I'm not anti-abortion like he is, but I think he said it best. Love policies, not politicians. Because you'll always be disappointed. Because politicians have to do what they have to do to get reelected. The politicians that I want are the politicians who do what needs to be done, regardless of their own personal consequences. You might lose the next election, but you did the right thing. But that is a problem in of itself. We need to understand it's not about my side or your side. It should be about common sense, common goals, common people. Sometimes, for the good of the state or the country or the city or whatever, politicians have to make decisions that don't necessarily align with their party preference. And that's what Purple State is about. That's one of the things Purple State stands for the most, is the fact that We don't want to have a purple side that we have to defend. What is the common sense, common people, common goals? What is that answer? How do we solve that problem? Regardless of the feelings. Do we need more water in California? Sure. Do we need to divert it? Sure. Are we going to let fish stand in the way? No. We're not going to go out of our way. Look what happened with the wharf in Santa Cruz that washed away in a storm. We were doing it to protect seagulls? That's not very much common sense. Well, you've made it this far, and I really appreciate it. If you could help out with a like, a subscribe, some notifies, all that kind of stuff, it really help grow this. You know, I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this for a country that I love. I'm doing this for a state that I grew up in. I grew up in the mountains that are on fire right now behind me. Started in the Eaton fire. I grew up in those places. I have my own handmade maps of some of those mountains. I have a lot of memories up there. I don't want to sit here and throw blame around. I want to look forward and try to figure out what we can do in the future to prevent these kinds of things from happening. And one way we could prevent these things from happening is to stop politicizing them. Purple State is not about having a side and defending it against the other sides. It's about bridging that gap between what the right and the left think. Sometimes the right's correct and sometimes the left's correct. But oftentimes, abortion, for example, or gay marriage, there is a common sense answer in the middle. And as Americans, we have to be brave enough to stand in the middle and say, fuck all the voices. This is what makes the most sense. This is what we're going to do. If you're out there and you're in one of these fire areas, man, all my prayers go out to you. You know, I may not have a church, but I have a God. And I pray to them. I pray for the safety of the firefighters, the homeowners, everybody in the path, man. You know, one thing that I want to just reiterate, just because somebody's rich doesn't mean it doesn't hurt to lose their home. And if you're one of those trolls out there, fuck you, man. You know, come find me. I'm Kid Copious. I'm Purple State Party, and so are you. Love one another. And you know what? Make sure that you have some common sense preparation for natural disasters. Water, food, batteries, power supplies, generators, even just your car. Make sure you have the vital things that you need to take care of yourself in a disaster. Because it kind of sucks as I look around and I saw the people who were unprepared. Dark houses, no flashlights, things like that. Take these fires as a wake-up call. And hopefully the celebrities will take it as a wake-up call and start voting for people who are not just elitist fringe people. Anyhow, I've gone on long enough, so you know what time it is. It's time to dance it out.